Hey guys, how are we? Today I basically learned how to do like individual components in objects, and I'll just walk you through a little bit about what I learned. So essentially, um, what you can see here is the scene and stuff like that, and essentially just made my own objects. Obviously, like with objects, you can create a 3D object and you can select what you want, but you can also just create any sort of object, any sort of size or whatever from scratch when you go create empty. So let's just like make, for example, a sphere. So we'll just call it, you know, Mo sphere. And what you will see is if you select this, it doesn't have any additional components. So like every object, for example, select capsule has a lot of components, which are like the individual parts or pieces that make it appear and operate the way that it does. So you can see here it has one, two, three, four components. Um, every single component when you create it has a transform, which is basically the position on the map, the rotation and the angle, and basically the scale and size of it. But when you create a new component, that's all that it has. It just has transform. So basically, when you're creating a new, object, you would add in components to make it look the way that you want it to look. And there's lots of different kind of components that you can choose from here. But for this one, let's make the scale a little bit bigger. So maybe let's make it like 20, 20, 20. You can't see it yet because it doesn't have any like rendering or anything like that. If you add component, and maybe if you go mesh filter, maybe open that up a bit, maybe select sphere filter. And if you go add component, you go mesh, this will give it some texture. The mesh renderer, open that up, see how it's come up as pink. You can just select what you want the material to look like. So yeah, whatever you want it to kind of look like. But the default one is usually good, unless you have something specific. Yeah. And then usually for like an object, you will also add in a box collider or a capsule collider or something like that, or a sphere collider. And basically what a collider does is, I think, when it hits or comes into contact with something else, it acts in the same way that something would act if it actually had a collision. So if it's a box that hits a box, it'll bounce off or something like that, right? So we'll just go sphere collider, and then you can see here, how wide you want this collision to happen. 0, 0, 0 is basically in line with the device. If you go maybe 2, 2, 2, you're changing the position where it collides, but you just want to go 0, 0, 0. That means it collides exactly where the sphere is. And yeah, that's pretty much how to add components to your objects, and you can just keep adding components based on what you're building and stuff like that to make it look and respond the way that you want it to, essentially. Cool. Thanks, guys.